Hey, hi everyone. I am Khushbu Sheikh, and welcome to the fourth session of Tech Exploration Hub. Today we have here with us Apoorva Singh. She is the product manager in Microsoft. And Apoorva has a very inspiring story moving from a software engineer role to a product manager role. And I'm very glad that we're having this call because Apoorva has just transitioned to the role and she's been really busy. So we've been having a lot of back and forth. And I'm really glad we're finally having this call. So I really want to appreciate Apoorva for taking out the time to share her insights and experience with us. And with that said, I will let Apoorva tell us something about herself before we move on to the questions.
Awesome. First of all, thank you, Khushbu, for inviting me here. And I know we've been having like a back and forth, as you rightly mentioned. But I'm glad you're finally here, right?
Yeah.
A quick background about me. So, hi, everybody. I'm Apoorva Singh, and I'm 26 years old. I live in India, Delhi NCR, and I currently have about like around 4.5 years of work ex. So basically, I joined Microsoft in 2020 as a college hire, and my role was that of a software engineer. So I basically worked as a full stack software engineer for about 3.5, 4 years, basically. And essentially, I worked on like a bunch of products, be it like some internal tools within Microsoft to digitize the whole sourcing ecosystem where Microsoft hires a lot of vendors. So our job was to like digitize that whole workflow to facilitate these vendors to put in their hourly rates and for us to like select the best ones for the job. I was in that team for about a year and a half to 2 years, and then I made a switch to basically Microsoft search ecosystem, and there I got a chance to work on some search capabilities for M365 suite, be it like Bing search, Team search, SharePoint search, etc. And then I pivoted to working on Copilot for enterprises, and we used to call that BizChat inside Microsoft. So I was there for about I think 7, 8 months, and I think during my course of being a full stack software developer, I got a chance to work with several PMs, and also having a broad knowledge about both the back end side of things as well as the front end. So in the course of those 4 years, I got a chance to like interview some customers for our user study sessions, and I would collaborate with the PMs for the same, and be it during the feature development lifecycle also. I got a chance to like shadow some of the PMs in my team and get to see their day-to-day work in terms of how they operate, right? So I think what I felt during that time was, I'll just keep it brief. We can jump on, like we can dig them deeper later on. But I kind of realized that I'm curious to understand what happens on the other side of the world. As developers, we're very much siloed in our development, and we know the technical know-hows, but I think the why and the how, I mean, that clarity of why we are developing something, and that sometimes is, I think, missing. So that is when I decided that I want to explore this role, and I tried reaching out to folks within Microsoft, and one person was kind enough to like give me a chance, and they interviewed me, and I moved to this role around 4 months back, and thoroughly enjoying learning how to be a PM right now. I think it's still very early to say like much, but I think I'm still learning and growing every single day. So currently I'm in Microsoft AI org as a product manager too, and I'm working in Bing search, and there we have this vertical, we have various answers in the Bing SERP. So I'm particularly leading the charter for people also ask answer on the Bing SERP, and I'm looking into the whole quality and metric side of things as a product manager. So yeah, that's a brief background about me.
That's really interesting background. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So now I'll move on to the questions. I think you kind of like covered, but because you said I want you to like give us more information about that. But like, what really inspired you to become a product manager?
Right. So I think I have always been a very curious person. I think even from my schooling days, I opted for computer science in my 11th and 12th standards. And there, I would always question like the very fundamentals of things. And I think that got accentuated when I went to university. And there also I pursued BTech in computer science. So I think there was this one particular hackathon where it was a national level hackathon called Smart India Hackathon, and there we had to develop this crime mapping application for a particular state. And there, I think I found myself being more interested by the fact that why are we developing something, and what are the features that we want to develop, and what problems they're essentially solving for like the customers and the people of that state. So during that pitching also, I was kind of leading the whole pitching part head on, and we ended up securing a position in that competition. So I think that seed was planted back in university itself, that I eventually, I think I would want to, along with the technical side of things, I would want to have that vision in terms of why we are developing something, and essentially drive that to success. So I think when I came to Microsoft initially, I joined during the pandemic. So I think there, in terms of like meeting with people, that was very much restricted, right? So for 2 years, I think I was at home, and then I was just learning how to be a good software developer. And I think I liked that role, and I was good at it, I would say that. But then offices reopened, then I came on campus, and I think that is where the real magic happened in terms of talking to so many PMs at Microsoft. I think at that point in time, I was still at crossroads whether I want to go for an MBA, or like whether do it in India or go abroad, because I had also given like my GRE, and I also prepared for CAT temporarily. Like I have tried so many things. But then when I came to on campus, I went to Hyderabad for around a year. That is where I talked to several PMs, and I came to know about stories, how folks have transitioned from the developer role to the PM role within Microsoft itself. And Microsoft, I think, is one of the very few big tech companies that kind of facilitates and, I would say, encourages this transition. So I think that is where talking to these PMs and understanding what their day to day looks like, because I think enjoying your day to day is so important, right? And in terms of, I think they have like a vision in terms of why, what we want to do in this whole semester or the next year, and how this feature will shape up in the future with the whole AI advancements taking place. How do you write that? I think that is when I think that click happened, that I definitely want to pursue this sometime later. So then again, I was in Hyderabad for around a year, and then I came back to the Noida campus here due to some personal reasons. But then that kida in me, that thing in me, never stopped bugging me that hey, I want to try this out. So then again, I got promoted twice in the course of these many years, and I was like, now is the right time to, I think, make that switch.
Okay.
So that is when I started the whole process of reaching out to people and making it eventually happen. Yeah.
Wow, that's really amazing. I'm glad you made it, like you took on and then you finally did the transition. So I wanted to know, like, what was your biggest challenge when you were trying to transition to this role?
Okay, got it. So I think biggest challenge for me was how do you develop those core competencies that a PM requires for like to make myself ready to actually transition. And because then if you're convincing someone to take, let's be very honest, at least in within India, usually I've seen that folks coming from top IIM, like basically we have Indian Institute of Management in India, and that is where like the top MBA grads, they usually come to these tech companies as PMs. So then how would I differentiate myself from these PMs and be able to make it right? So I think that is where that whole that I mean that self doubt would come in every now and then, that how do I really prepare myself in my current role so that I can build those transferable skills that would position me well to like basically transition to this role. So I think again, got having a chance to like talk to these real people who actually made this happen. I realized that it was very much there. I mean, the skills that I wanted to take, like, we are, even as engineers, we are very much data driven. Like, if we are doing A/B testing for any feature, we do look at the metrics and decide why we want to take a particular call to ship the feature or not. So I think that data driven decision making happened very much organically in the teams that I was part of. Again, since I was a full stack dev, so I think I also was working on the front end of the features, and I would question as a developer, why are we like, I would question the PMs, why are we building this feature from a customer standpoint? What problem is it solving? So I think that knack for questioning and seeing things from a customer's perspective kind of got organically developed. And when I realized that I actually want to make this transition, maybe 1 or 2 years later, I became much more intentional in asking my PMs those questions, right? Again, and obviously, like, I think I had to build my case that much stronger because I was competing with like these top grads from these IM
Yeah.
universities, right? So I think that's why I waited for one more promotion, because then that would I have proven myself
Yeah.
twice, gotten
Yeah.
promoted twice, and then I've been a developer for 4 years. It's not like I always like advise my juniors, don't take this plunge in like the first year or second year of a university, like on your in a corporate job. Like give it 3 4 years at least.
Okay.
So I think the biggest challenge was I think, yeah, just handling that self doubt. How do I position myself with all these
Hmm.
people and make a mark and differentiate myself? But then I think you have to identify in your current role what really differentiates you and what transferable skills you can bring in from your current role to your next role. I think that bridges the gap there and makes it easier. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think curiosity played a major role in your transition, which is
Yeah.
just good to know. It's good to be curious, right?
Yeah.
Can you can you briefly describe like what a product manager actually does?
Sure, sure. So I think I would say that a PM is like a glue that holds the whole product together, right? They act like a bridge between the engineering vertical, the design vertical, and even the business and strategic side of the world, to ensure that a product is able to deliver value to the customers. They're solving the right problems for the customers, and very importantly, they're also able to like meet business goals at large, right? So as a PM, essentially they are out like they're mapping the product, the business Uber business outcomes to like product outcomes. So like what feature would you want to develop, how will they move the key metrics, and both like product metrics as well as the business metrics, like how will that particular feature drive revenue and different kinds of things that we want to achieve from the business, right? So I think that essentially involves like defining the whole product vision, creating a roadmap for say like the next semester, for the next year. Then you need to essentially prioritize those features and analyze data, gather user feedback, and then your job is to help drive that execution to success, right? So at the core, the role is all about solving the right problems for the right audience, and essentially driving that to success is what I would sum it up as. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Good to know. Thank you so much on that. My next question would be like, how can someone showcase the skills they've developed as a software engineer to like stand out in a product management interview?
Yeah, right. So I think your biggest, I would say, advantage is your technical background, right? You should play it to your strength, because a big part of your PM job is to communicate with the engineering vertical and your engineering counterparts. And if you're like a fluff PM who just doesn't understand the technical like terminologies, or if we have like architecture, you don't need to deep dive into that architecture, but you need to know at a Uber level, why have we chosen like say architecture A over B, and why is it A scalable, why is B not scalable? So I think sorry, can you repeat that question? I think I lost it somewhere. But what key
So what like how can someone showcase the skills they have developed as a software engineer to basically
right.
stand out in a product management interview?
Right, right. So I think again, as I mentioned, the technical thing will be your biggest. That is
Yeah.
how I pitched myself in my interviews. That even in my interviews, like the folks who were interviewing me, they knew that I'm coming from a technical background, so they kind of tailored the interviews in that direction. That how what did I learn as a developer that will help me in this new role. So I think again, like ensure that you are well versed with what you have done over the last couple of years as a developer, and how that helped you gain an insight into the product at large, and like the customer for whom you're building that product, right? So even as a developer, I mean, even I think in big tech companies, that is the worldview that I have. So I'll say that developers are very much encouraged to like know, like extend beyond their just the daily work of like the technical stuff, right? So I think you should be very much intentional and very mindful of taking out some time from your daily schedule and thinking more about the product and showcasing that in your day-to-day work. And
So,
I think, yeah,
sorry. Does
please
that
go.
mean does that mean if someone's working on a specific product as a software engineer, they should try product manager in that specific like product and like domain technical knowledge, or like they can even try outside of that? What do you think is better?
So I think generalizing would not be right here, but what I have personally felt is that if you're changing something drastic, because a developer to a PM, and that I mean that is the only thing I can talk about. I can't talk
Right.
about consultants moving to PM or data analyst. Like I would
Mhm.
not comment on that. But for developers specifically, I think changing your role itself is a huge, like drastic change. So I would say don't try to change too many variables for yourself. If you're changing variable like one variable, that is your role, right?
Mhm.
Try not to change domain, because that will help you in that transition journey. Like for me, in my case, I have been in the search space for like almost 2 years now. So
Okay.
when I moved from the search domain as a developer to again the search domain as a PM, I think that at least that journey for me was much more easier. And
Mhm.
given the fact that it was a role change, I was not too stressed about the fact that hey, it's also like a domain change for me as well, a role change. How will I manage? So
Right.
I always advise people, if it's possible, like although my case was a bit ideal, but if it's possible, do try
Mhm.
to change as less variables as you possibly can,
Yeah.
because yeah, you don't want to be too hard on yourself initially.
Yes.
You have
No.
all your career to like keep experimenting, but given that if you're getting that opportunity to make that switch, try to make it as easy as possible, because this change from dev to PM is very drastic in itself. So yeah.
I agree. I think that that's a very good, very great advice, actually. I hope it helps others who are transitioning, trying to transition from software engineer to product manager role. What do you think is the toughest part of being a product manager?
Okay, so I think I anyway knew about this before I joined as a PM, but I think two things I would say. First of all, is that as a dev, because I would maybe compare it like both the roles. As a dev, you have very strict, like you have very clear milestones that hey, you have this feature, you execute it in this fashion, you raise like a pull request, then you get it approved, then this feature goes to A/B testing. Then I think that clarity is there. So you just need to focus on the technical side of things, like what database are you using, which like say algorithm are you using, etc. Right? But as a PM, I think it's a whole world of ambiguity. Like you'll just know about this Uber level OKR that your organization wants to like execute. Then you need to essentially go on the board and devise something from scratch. I think that ambiguity is, you need to make it your ally instead of like your foe. So I think I signed up for this role. I knew it firsthand that it will be difficult, but I would say that it can be a bit uncomfortable from someone coming from a dev role, because in dev world it's very clear in terms of the technical stuff that you want to pick up, say in the next quarter or so, right? And I think the next thing would be influencing without having authority. So as a PM, we don't have authority, like we can't command an authority on anyone. We need to we need to work with the engineering counterparts as a team, and we need to still influence decision making, that hey, we want to we have this vision for the product, we want to execute this feature in the, say, the next quarter or so. You need to be able to influence those decisions without sounding authoritative. So I think that is something, there's a very fine line in being like between being authoritative and non-authoritative, yet being able to influence. So I think that is a skill that you need to, I'm still learning, and I'm still like trying to understand how to navigate through that.
Yeah.
But I signed up for it, and I'm loving learning about it every single day. Yeah. So
Nice.
for anyone who, yeah, I think
I
that's the
think I
one thing.
really loved your response. I think you've put it together really well. I loved it. Thank you for that. And what advice would you give someone transitioning into product management? Like this is not just for like software developers, but for anybody who's trying to transition into PM role. What advice do you have for them?
Right. So I think again, I would just double down on learning and leveraging those transferable skills, right? So essentially, like say, I personally know about so many people who have come from say not just the traditional route of doing an MBA to although I would not call it traditional, but at least here in India, in top tech companies, that's the route I've seen people take. They go to an top IIM university or some other top MBA college, then they come here. But then I have also heard amazing stories of people coming from data analytics, consulting profiles. They had stints at startups in different, I mean, it's this role is a I think one thing I love about this role is you need to wear so many hats. You need to be a
Right.
storyteller, you need to be a data person. So even I have heard about someone who was like a content writer in some startup, then they took up some courses, and then they were able to come to a startup again as a APM. So I think,
Okay.
yeah, don't restrict yourself. Leverage transferable skills in your current role and highlight how your particular expertise in your domain can be brought to the PM role and blended with it beautifully, right?
Okay.
And so if, in order to do that, you need to build those PM experiences in your current role. So you can, in your current role, you can volunteer for particular tasks, like you can collaborate with your PMs. Hey, like, are you working on some like product requirement doc? Can I help you with that? Can I give in some insight from my end? If they are using some, if they are doing some user study session, you can maybe say, I want to analyze the user feedback. Can I give in some input there? Or you can drive something across your org and take up some role. So I think you need to be very aggressive in finding those opportunities in your current role. You can't just be complacent and wish for that magical role to just stand on your plate, right? And I
Yeah.
think third thing I would say is like really network with people. Like when I was trying to make this change happen, I must have talked to like 50 plus PMs. Because I researched for it about I think 2 years. I took to like thoroughly research before making such a huge change. So I literally have a repository in my like OneNote where I have like tagged people like these are the people who made a switch from dev to PM, then consultant to PM. Some these folks came from like MBA to PM, non MBA to PM. So I
Wow.
had like I have stories, I have 50 plus stories to give me that confidence that I can also make it happen. So I leverage LinkedIn for that. I anyway write actively on LinkedIn. I would just shamelessly drop. I mean, when I say shamelessly, I would not think too much about dropping a note to someone that, hey, I'm inspired by your journey and I want to learn from it. And I mean, it should sound very genuine when you are reaching out to someone for advice. You can't just drop in a note, hey, are you free? I want to learn more about your role. You should be having your pitch ready as to why they should take out time for you and give you some advice, right? And yeah, I think these are the three things I would
Amazing.
say that, and again, if you think that your current role is not sufficient enough for to arm you with the skills required to break into this role, take up some courses, right? Like
Mm.
I have read this book called Cracking the PM Interview. It's a classic book, and I have only read some very specific chapters, but I know them by heart. And I would watch these mock interviews on YouTube. And I mean, you should also formally learn about this role if you think that your current role is not sufficient, because that can help you. I also know about stories of people who have taken up these courses and broken into the role. So I
Right.
think this I would sum it up in this fashion. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Actually, like you kind of covered my next question as well. It was like, what resources do you recommend to aspiring PMs? So,
Okay.
one part of like whatever you just mentioned, just wanted to also summarize by saying that you recommend having mentors. Like, you reach out to certain group. Did you have like mentors that you would reach out to any doubts you have or any questions you had?
Yeah. So I think over the course of all these people that I talked to, I kind of figured out whose style matches mine. Like I realized that, hey, this person, the kind of the way in which they are giving me feedback and guidance, I think that is something I'm inspired by, and that matches my style of learning. So
Okay.
I identified I had I think two people who were like within Microsoft, and they actively mentored me in the course of 2 years. So actually, one of the person, they actually told me to switch my role from initially, as I mentioned, I was in an internal tools team within Microsoft. They suggested me to move to an org within the search. She was working there actually. So she told me, why don't you come here? The scale is much larger, because and that will expose you to like different facets of PMing here within here itself. Because internal tools team, I think if people are not aware, the scope is limited in terms of impact and learning there. Technically, I think it was amazing, but in terms of the product that was being used within Microsoft, so I could not really get that feeling of actual customers outside Microsoft using that product. So
Okay.
I had two mentors, and I would just, whenever I would feel like down or worried if it'll happen or not, I would just have a chat with them, and they would console me and give me that boost that I needed. And
Okay.
they were
So
big
did you
factors
like
in it.
so did you like shadow these people? Like, I mean, did you shadow like these PMs, they build those product roadmaps and they gather data, customer feedbacks? Like, did you have a chance to like actually, shadow any of the PMs?
Yeah. So in my project itself, I have had amazing rapport with the PMs in my team, thankfully, over the course as when I was a developer. So I think there also, I would talk to my PM informally. I could not make it happen formally, although within Microsoft and I know some other places, people actually have interned as a PM in their company, and then after 3 months they got a full time. I mean, they got the chance to like convert into a full time PM role. I could not make it happen that way. I directly interviewed for the full time role and got selected. But informally, I had this kind of understanding with the PMs that, whatever we are working on, I would love to understand more about the role,
Okay.
and more about how the work that you're doing and kind of your role is sort of aligning. So I think I did it informally, but people can actually do it formally, and they can talk to their managers and make it happen so that they don't they can manage their time well.
Okay,
So,
got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Apurva. I'm really enjoying your responses, to be honest.
so
I also like wanted to know, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently to make this transition, or like you're happy about everything that went well, or is there anything that you would have avoided? Kind of,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
Instead, I would have avoided. Mm,
or maybe done differently. You think like, I should have done this way and not this way, sort of.
yeah, yeah. So I think I would have loved if I got an opportunity to actually intern as a PM
Mm.
first, because I mean, don't want to sugarcoat it. It's very difficult to move from one role to another.
Absolutely.
So I think an internship would have been like the perfect gap, like bridge to uh, actually make me move, like help me move from the dev to the PM role, because those 3 months would have given me the perfect time to like really be like a complete student and ask like very dumb questions, I think.
But then
So,
you
but
couldn't go to a intern role because will they not consider your experience because you're a software engineer and you're already like couple of years in the company and then you go as an intern PM, that kind
yeah,
of like is that a good path still, or you think that no, that wouldn't be a good path?
I think that's the best path actually.
Okay.
For me, let's be honest, the tech world hasn't been it's like in its best shape in the last 2 years. So there were not enough openings for me to like actually get that opportunity.
Okay.
So yeah, otherwise I would have loved to take an intern role first, and there are various official forums as well within Microsoft to make this happen. But when I was trying for it, I struggled for like 6+ months to make it actually a year, I would say. But I could not find any opportunity to intern. So that is why I took that route to just apply for it directly and move to the PM role. But I think ideally, I would suggest people to make it more gradual if it's possible. I think that is the only thing I feel. Maybe had it been the case, if I could have gotten an internship, it would have been more easier, that transition. But I think other than that, I know I gave my absolute best. And had it not been for Microsoft, I would have eventually landed somewhere, maybe at a startup. But I knew I wanted to make this happen. So I think, yeah, I did my absolute best. Yeah.
Amazing. So proud of that. So proud of you for that. I just had one last question. So, like I myself was trying to transition to a product manager role, and like in the near future also, I might be looking forward to do that. So that is
Sure.
also another reason I was very curious to know your experience. I
Yeah.
spoke to a couple of product managers as well when I was interviewing last year, and uh,
Mhm.
and I just had a question that I wanted to check with you on what you think about it. Like after talking to a couple of product managers, I could gauge that product manager is not a very women friendly role, and
Mhm.
especially when you have kids. So what do you think about that? Like what do you think as a woman,
Mhm.
is it like really that difficult to get into this role and perform the duties? What is
Mhm.
your say?
Mm, that's very interesting because for me, I think Touchwood, I've been lucky enough to, I have been in teams where the ratio has been very much balanced. So I think even like my manager is a female, and uh, I have not experienced this before. Like till now, I have not experienced this. But also, like I am not, I don't have kids, so I would not be the right person to comment on that.
So
Uh,
actually, the major reason many of them told me was because like you have to be on too many calls. Like in some companies, you even have to be on calls like during the night because sometimes your development team is in India or like some other zone.
yeah,
So like yeah, it gets very difficult to like manage.
yes, yes,
W- did you
for
did
sure,
you experience that?
for
Because I know
sure.
like we had calls scheduled and then you suddenly said, hey, I have like a customer call or like
Yes,
call and I
yes,
have to drop off.
yeah,
So is that how your day today and like do you experience
yeah.
that?
I think that's a very interesting point that you brought up. And that's a very big shift of moving from a dev to a PM, that your meetings will just, I mean, skyrocket. Like
Mhm.
earlier, I would have like 2, 3 days in a week completely empty. But now, every single day almost, I have like at least 4 meetings every day. So I would say definitely, like, say, right now, I think I have the resources and the help at home, thankfully, to make this journey easier. But everyone is not privileged enough to have
Yeah,
that kind of support. I have full-time house help at my home, so I think because in between calls, if someone rings the bell, or
yeah,
if it's about food, I mean, I don't need to worry about that. But I do know people in the US and all, they don't might not have that kind of
yeah,
resources at their disposal, right? So I think I am very privileged in that aspect, but had it not been the case, it's definitely challenging. And it's,
yeah.
I know women who are like juggling it, and they are they are powering through,
Anyway,
and it's not
yeah,
easy, but I would definitely say it's challenging. It has its fair share of struggles, but yeah,
yeah.
I won't say it's a smooth ride. That's
So
for sure.
I think you're right on that. Like if you have like a family support, it makes a lot of difference. But if you don't have that support, like I was trying myself and then I gave a couple of interviews and then I came back. I was like, I spoke to a lot of product managers and this is what their feedback was. Like, you know, if you're having kids and like your kids are really small, then I would, you know, rethink about moving into this role because
Mhm.
you'll have to be like on calls, you'll be talking to like different kind of stakeholders. So managing all of that is not easy. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think your feedback makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much, Apurva. It was so delightful talking to you. I think everything that you have shared has been like extremely good. And I think people who are transitioning will be extremely helpful, especially for myself. I think even though I'm not a developer, I could relate to a lot of things that you were talking about. So I
Yeah.
think it's going to be very, very helpful. I hope it helps the others folks out there. Yeah. Thank you. Do
Thank you so
you
much,
have
Khushbu.
any last words, any last advice before we like end the call?
Yeah, yeah. So I think first of all, the feeling is mutual. Thoroughly enjoy talking to you, and you've been amazing. Even like I know I had to cancel last minute couple of times, but you have been more than graceful, and thank you so much for bearing with that.
No worries.
And I think I'm glad I'm getting this opportunity to give back to the people, because in my journey, I can't stress enough how much people support and their guidance helped me, yeah, making it through. So more than happy to have this forum, and kudos to you for doing this, and I really
Thank
appreciate this initiative that you've taken, right? And I think to all the people who are thinking about it, I would say um, don't be in a rush to make this change. Think if it really suits your personality and whether it's the right fit, because I know people who have done that and they are not super happy about the transition as well. And some people, they simply don't like their current role, and then they take that as a motivation to like shift. That's not right. Like,
Okay.
don't think like, I don't like coding, so I want to shift. That's not the right mindset to have. Think
Okay.
about why you want to go to that role instead of why you don't like it. That's why you maybe want would be good at it or would like it. So I
Okay.
think that's the biggest red flag anyone can have in their mindset in terms of making this transition. So give it time, give it like 6 months to a year before you actually make it happen, and take that time to understand how this role complements your personality, because your career is like 20, 30 years long, and you can't just
Yeah.
uh, you can postpone it for 6 months and really think about it deep enough. Yeah, so I think that is all I would like to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good advice. Very, very good advice. I think you should be like very sure about what you're doing and what you want to do, because you don't want to land in a place where you don't know like how to handle it or how to deal with things. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
I completely agree with you there. So yeah,
yeah.
and I see that you're doing some stock trading and like you're doing a side gig. Maybe we should have another call in future for that. But
For
yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love investing in the stock market, and I and my husband, like I think we come from the mindset that, hey, if we are earning this much, we should learn how to
Yes,
protect and increase it. So
investment.
that,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I keep following that. So good job on that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you so much, Apurva. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Thank
Bye bye. Take care.
For sure. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.